Hi, my name is Faizan Sabzaali, and I'm here as usual with Texas Peck.
Hi, guys.
And this is the Energy Corner. And this podcast is really about using our thoughts, emotions, and feelings to be able to transform or to really expand. I think that's what we're really in. And today's topic, I think it's an interesting one.
It's interesting for us right now.
Well, I don't know how interesting it is. Really, we've been living it.
Yeah.
Is some part of the expansion when we think of expanded consciousness, self improvement, all of these things.
Right.
It's like we have to show up as perfect as we are, right?
Or imperfect.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no. But like
Yeah.
the thinking sometimes is that we have to be really perfect.
Oh, yeah.
That if I show up, I have to be the master of our domain here. And
No.
a lot of times that actually doesn't work.
I don't know if it ever really works,
Yeah.
right? Because that's that illusion of control,
Yeah.
right?
So like we've been wanting to record these things, had some issues, whatever. So we're like, okay, we're going to sit on Friday and record. And then there's banging going on upstairs.
Yeah, if you hear noise, because we have construction above us.
And
all of the things.
yeah, and then you have a headache
Yeah,
right
well,
now.
I wasn't going to say anything, but yeah. So it's like, okay, I have a headache. I didn't sleep well last night. But it was like we made a commitment to be here, and then we're going to get a little bit more into that.
Yeah.
But because it can be like pushed through at any cost, and I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah, but so I guess what we should talk about is showing up
Yeah.
as you are, and the benefit of that
Yeah.
within any community, right? So sometimes the community could be what we've got going on right now as the expansion project community. If you want to join, please let us know. But
Nice.
have to do a little plug. No, but whether it's the community like that, or it's a community, a religious community, a social community,
Sports team.
sports teams,
Yeah.
family systems,
Right.
and sometimes it's like we're not fully able to show up because we're not being perfect, we're not in that environment. Yet the kids have to be picked up. All of those things have to be done,
They
right?
Still got to show up. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's in your mind, if I'm not doing well,
Right.
or at least I judge myself as I'm not doing well,
Right.
like I'm sad, I'm
Depressed.
depressed. I've got my anxiety up,
Yeah.
which is something personal, like for me personally, something I
Right.
deal with. Even with that, why is it important that I show up?
Well, you have to show up, in my opinion, because if you sit back, we tend to isolate, right? And showing up is an opportunity for us to participate in something.
Right.
And even just in the act of doing that, we're saying there's something bigger than me that's going to help me.
Yeah.
I played a lot of sports when I was a kid, and so when it's Faizan, we're going to do sports analogies sometimes. But the greatest guys on the team were not always the greatest players.
Right.
Right? There was those guys that would come, and when they were hurt, and they weren't going to be able to play that Saturday, and they still showed up and they cheered and they did what they could,
Yeah.
and in that showing up, it helped the team, right?
Yeah. And I think there was this sense of leadership that showed up. Like, okay, you're not the best,
Yeah.
but they're like, going back to some of the sports teams that I've kind of grown up watching. There's been a lot of those players, people
Grinders?
that grind, but that also just show up. Like they're the leaders that kind of hold the team accountable.
Yeah.
Right. Like they're kind of the extension of the coach, as they say.
Right.
So I think part of it is, like you said, right, like just showing up
Right.
as we are allows we don't know what energy we might be bringing to
Right.
the group.
And there's that whole thing. So we'll jump into this a little bit further. There's a lot happening. Anytime. So if we have two people, we have twice as many as one, right?
Yep.
And if we have a group, there's all of that. So from an energy work point of view, we have all these different energies that we have able to help us on our journey.
Yeah.
Right. So when we show up and we go, okay, I'm just going to come, even though I'm sad or anxious or depressed or whatever that is, right? I'm just going to come, I'm going to show up, and I'm going to trust that somebody in this group may have something for me. For me, when the stuff that I held, like when I started my consciousness journey, like whenever that was for me, or like it was most of my life, but when I really got into it in my early 20s, I thought there was things about me that if anybody knew, they would really not like me. Like if you like me when you see me like this, but if you knew what I was carrying around inside of me,
Right.
you wouldn't really like me, right? So there was these pieces of me that I didn't just hide from everybody else. I hid them from me.
Yeah.
Right. So when I started to do this work, there was a call to show up and have a look at these things, and it was work. Yeah. It wasn't just go in and sit down and poof, it's all gone. I had to keep showing up.
Right.
We talk a little bit about the egoic mind. We'll go there, but I think one of the things is lazy. It wants to find a way around things, not through things, right? And so when we want to go into that consciousness journey, it requires a lot of work.
Yeah.
So
one of the main reasons people don't show up sometimes is that there's parts of them that they know about that if what they perceive as is that if somebody found out that they have those parts, that they will be judged, they won't be liked,
right,
they'll be shunned, and sadly, I'm gonna assume we've all been parts of communities where that's possibly happened.
For sure.
Right? Yeah. So there were parts of us that they didn't like, and they're like, we have it. You're too much. Yeah. You're too little. You're not enough.
Reinforced over and over and over.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And so I think it's a protection mechanism where it's like, okay, I cannot show this part.
Right.
Right. Now, in a community that's dedicated to expanding.
Right.
Again, that could be within the expansion project, or you're just watching here, or you're meeting like groups of people. But it's like if there are parts you have to hide, that actually like it prevents you from getting access to that consciousness that you're really after.
So my view on the consciousness is that it really shows up big the more authentic you are.
Yeah.
Right. So and that's. First of all, being authentic inside myself, right? So looking at those things, and we talk a lot about this in the expansion project. If I'm authentic, and we can jump into this a little bit, but we believe that we're there's another realm. There's a quantum field, fifth dimensional realm, whatever, and in that there's our higher self.
Yeah. Right.
And so the more authentic I am, the more in alignment I am with my higher self, because my higher self already knows who I am. Right? And that alignment piece is really important for us to be able to see ourselves the way we actually are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And do you feel like this concept of higher self, right? Like, do you feel like some of us judge ourselves that even our higher self is not going to like us?
Yeah, or not
like this version of me?
No, yeah, for sure. That's the whole thing. That separation from that is what causes us the pain.
Right. Right.
So
So talking about showing up then, as you are.
Right.
Let's kind of go
back.
That's a tough
one, right?
Well, yeah. Let's go back to it's tough to talk about in a sense that I can't. There are places where you're like, okay, I can't be rowdy. I can't be okay, fine. Like, but those are behaviors.
Yes.
That's not what we're talking about here.
I'm not talking about behaviors at all.
Yeah.
Right. That's a very three-dimensional concept,
right?
And we can kind of weaponize that, right. And then there's a lot of that going on where it's like, well, you just have to like me the way I am. Screw you, like that. Well, no, like there's social forms and there's things that we need to kind of, look at, right? But that doesn't have anything to do with who I really am.
Right. Yeah. That doesn't mean that I'm gonna let go of my boundaries. That doesn't mean that I have to let go of my values. All of those things is like, okay, I can show up and be who I'm called to be in this moment in the service, right? And I think that's the other piece is like, I know I've struggled to sometimes show up fully as I am while I'm, in my little anxiety or in my depth of grief, whatever it might be. Is that when I showed up,
What happened?
when I decided to show up, it's like, oh, there was an offering that I could make. And I've been kind of studying different philosophies and all Christian philosophies, Jewish philosophies, Islamic philosophies,
Right.
yogic philosophies. They all talk about service.
Weird, eh?
They all talk about service as the way forward. And so when I'm showing up in my sadness and grief and anxiety,
Right.
I'm able to hold something for somebody else.
Yeah.
Right? I'm able to offer somebody who may not have had the opportunity. I remember this, there was a funeral where I went to and say, this depth of crying just came out.
Yeah.
I don't cry, right? Like you talk to my kids, they'd be like, I've never seen this guy cry,
Right.
except, at a couple of funerals.
Except when you showed up authentically.
Yeah. But that me doing it allowed somebody else to say,
Gave somebody else license.
and like they had been holding this grief for years.
Yeah. Wow. Right.
And it wasn't this person that they were really grieving.
No, could be. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, so me showing up allows somebody to say, okay, if he can touch that depth of grief, maybe I can also touch, and then get beyond it, right? Like I think part of it is like we feel like if I show it, I'm gonna get stuck in it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that is a tricky word, but people in leadership are really, really told not to do that. Right. And Dr. Sire and I were talking the other day about, especially in the mental health, you're taught not to identify with your own struggle in the midst of helping people.
Yeah.
So there's this disconnect right where the healing needs to happen. Right? And I've been doing this for a bit. I know that if I'm open and vulnerable, authentic when I show up, I have the ability to help that person move through whatever it is. If I just give them information, like here's the 7 steps that you have to go through, it doesn't work. Like you know what I mean? Because that's just here, right? There's no heart in that. Yeah. And when we are a heart-centered being, we'll just say that way. And so if I can be in my heart center, not in my egoic mind, that has a lot more power, right? We've all sat with somebody who didn't even know what to say. Yeah. But they just sat there, and you just knew that they were in it with you.
Right. And actually, you're touching on the other aspect of service. For me, at least, when you show up as you're allowing somebody else to then also hold you.
Right.
And I know for me, I struggled and still struggle with this, is that somebody can hold me, somebody can actually serve me, not the other. Like, I love serving other people, but when it's time to let other people serve me, I struggle with that.
Why do you think that's so important?
To allow other people to serve me?
Well, not even but just the idea that you could have something given to you, something that you didn't earn, something that you didn't earn. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is, for me, it comes down to my worthiness. So I've struggled feeling worthy.
Right.
Right? Like, there's parts of me right now feeling like, am I worth it sitting here with you talking about this?
Yeah, well.
Talking to whoever who's going to listen to this.
Yeah, because we're just 2 guys having a conversation.
Right. Yeah. But am I worthy of that conversation right now? Yeah. Right. Like, am I worthy of being heard? Mm-hmm. All of those, so that thought comes, that loop goes, and then says, well, I'm not really worthy of Texas caring for me and holding me in my anxiety. Right. And so, but then I also then take away
my opportunity to say, hey, Faizan, I got you. Yeah. Right. And vice versa. So I think that's we're touching a really deep line there. Yeah. Right. Because when we come out of this this mind mechanism, right? This as Monique talks about, we have a human. I really like that. Right. When we start to, okay, what does that even mean? there's a part of us that we have access to that we don't spend a lot of time with.
Right.
And in that place, there's no earning of love.
Yeah.
Right? It's just there. And I always talk to people about this, this idea that, and it's really out there. We're love, and it's true. And we don't need to do anything to earn it. There's a lot of that's out there. And I think that this is a bit of disservice because we don't really explain it. Because if I'm sitting in my room depressed, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Love is not that's a problem, right?
Right.
I can't feel the love.
I can't
access it.
Yeah. So one of the things that I work with when I work one-on-one with people, we talk about that concept that you can't do anything to be more loved than you are. Mm-hmm. And that, like, if you slow that down, you can't do anything to be any more loved than you are. But when we're here, we have no ability to know that.
Yeah.
The lens is wrong, right? The lens is wrong. So this concept that you're talking about receiving, what if I already have everything and I didn't do anything for it? Mm. Right?
Yeah.
That pushes, boy, like it's like I've been taught that if I do this, whatever, sweep the floor, do the dishes, whatever it was in your life that got you some acceptance, that's our version of love. So it's an exchange. It's always an exchange.
Well, a lot of us have this philosophy or concept of salvation, right? And the salvation only comes when you're after suffering through many
whatever
events, tragedies, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
and there's things to be learned. And I mean, that's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
But my point, I really believe this is it, right to my bones. It's just my belief system that I'm just going to continue in my life this time, understanding more and more and more about how much I'm loved.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes I have to show up, right? So we do this in real time. We don't rehearse obviously any of this stuff, but I showed up today, right? And you showed up today because we had a commitment to do that. And for all intents and purposes, we could have stayed stuck in a story that let's just not do this today.
Yeah.
Right? But as we are in it, and as we're talking about this, that part of me is getting fed, right? That deeper part of me that's going, oh yeah, this is where I find the love.
Right. Through connection,
through service, all the things that we're doing here is like a mini capsule of what life is supposed to be about.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think it's really difficult for us to know what and how we're going to be serving somebody.
I don't know. I think if you knew that, it would kind of take the service part out of it.
Yeah. So you guys, you and Sarah run like this concierge group.
Yeah.
Right. Like where
we go deep.
You take a few people and you're like really going deep.
Right.
And part of it was people were struggling to show up sometimes, and maybe still are struggling to show up in that group. And I've heard you on the phone, just not forcing them, but encouraging them. Show up as you are because that's going to serve somebody. That energy is needed today.
Right. Yeah. So that person's whatever they're struggling with in that group. Let's say you got a group of 10 people, and that person's going, today I just don't want to come because I just feel really bummed out or whatever that is, right? I don't know. This looks really big, and maybe and this is the other thing that the ego loves to. Maybe I'm just a little different from all these other people.
Oh, right.
Right. I'm special, even if it's a negative special. I'm still like you don't. No. You don't understand. I get this a lot. You don't understand my struggle. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't. Right. You don't understand mine. We don't have to have commonality of struggle to have commonality of solution.
Well, then it's part of an identification, right?
Yeah.
That story of struggle that was mine. It's like I get to keep it. That makes me who I am.
Yeah.
And what we're really trying to talk about now is if you really want to get into this consciousness world, right? If you want to get into this world of the higher self,
right,
the quantum reality, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
At that moment, I can't have an identification with this story, this body, this anything.
Right.
Right. And part of me, like right now, I'm personally going through that. Is I'm being like challenged to let go of some of the identification I've had with how I show up.
Mm-hmm.
Like the beard just growing wild. But it's like there are these things where it's like, like you got to look a certain way. Well, you can't look a certain way there because it doesn't really matter.
No, and we all go through that. Like so this for those of you who don't know, this whole idea of being in front of a camera and doing a podcast and all that stuff. In my fixed identity, I look a certain way.
Yeah.
That I think I look a certain way, and then you put the camera on me, like, holy dude, who's that old bugger? And so I had to make peace with that. It's like, okay, this is the vessel I have. But that was I had to work that through.
Right. And because that blocks you from a place where there is no separation, right?
Right.
And so if I have a story that I'm identifying with, whether it's good or bad,
doesn't matter,
struggle or not, it's like it's keeping me anchored here in this world, in this body, with this mind, which you talk about something. It's like, and I feel like it has a tie into the showing up. You constantly talk about that the mind that has created the problem
cannot solve the problem.
Right. Okay. So I want to touch base on that.
Yeah.
At another episode if we can.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because I think that this showing up is kind of the anchor of foundation piece, right? Of all of the concepts that we're going to talk about.
Well, if you don't show up, even if you like this podcast, if you don't show up, you won't know what, like, literally, and if we don't show up, there is nothing. Like, sometimes you just have to do that piece.
Yeah,
right?
And then showing up doesn't mean like a physical space, but like
No.
if there are things you've been wanting to do, you've been like, okay, I need to really look at this part of me that I've been struggling with. Well, you have to show up to look at that part.
Yeah.
Like, look at that part. Like, for many years, well, Sarah will tell you I'm still struggling with it.
Well,
which
she's not here, so we don't.
She's not here, so we but like this anger.
Yeah.
Right? Like, but I have to show up to actually work through it.
Yes.
I have to talk about it. I have to show up with it. I have to see where it's coming from. I can't just be like, well, I got to deal with it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe this is a good place to.
Yeah.
This little. I have a little catchphrase. I kind of like it. It says that consciousness is a participation sport.
Right.
Right. You have to be in it. You can't sit on the outside. And I'm not against any of these things. Read a lot of books. Do a lot of this. Like, if you're not in, there's no impetus for growth. There's nothing rubbing up against you that you got to go, oh, wow, that's uncomfortable, and I got to step into that, right?
Yeah,
so,
let's bring that up in the new episode because I that's a personal experience that I know I can bring.
Yeah,
where I'm sure you can as well. It's like it's one thing to be reading and doing all of the stuff, but until you're ready to show up,
I think that's something
right?
you can really speak to, because I know I watched you with that. Right?
So I think part of it is like, so let's talk about that. But to however many listeners we're going to have, it doesn't really matter. We're going to encourage you to show up.
Yeah.
I mean, if you need a place to show up, we have the expansionproject.com. Links will be in the description of these videos. We're here to hold space. But if that's not the space that's calling you, if there are other spaces, if there's individual work that you need to do, fine. I think part of it is like, Texas has really taught a lot of people, I'm sure he's taught himself and me as well, is starting with that commitment, that today I'm ready.
Because and it's so important because this doesn't always come easy, yeah? So then if we don't have a commitment, as soon as it gets tough, we bail. Yeah. And that's a really dangerous thing. Dangerous. I think is the right word. Because you don't get to learn something new a second time. And so we'll jump into some of that stuff.
Yeah. So follow us, like and share these videos.
Sure.
And
we'll get better at this.
Or not, or this is as good as we're going to be. That's okay.
Yeah.
But we're I know committed to showing up.
We're going to show up. We're going to make some of these videos, and we're just really ordinary guys, right? With families and things that are right and things that are wrong. Yeah. But we know I really have been allowed a really neat journey this time of helping people to come into that consciousness, and so that's my life.
Yeah.
If you dig into us, you'll know this is all we do. This is it. And we don't do this for another reason. We do this because it's what we're supposed to be doing. We're showing up.
Yeah, and we're committed. We're committed to holding space for because that's what we're being called to do right
Exactly.
now. So
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
And we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.